ಗುರು ಸಾಕ್ಷಾತ್ ಪರಂ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ತಸ್ಮೈ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರವೇ ನಮಃ. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ, ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾವ ತಿಥಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀನಿ? ಬುಧವಾರ, ಅಶ್ವಿನಿ, ಷಷ್ಠಿ, ಕೃಷ್ಣಾಷ್ಟಮಿ 19th ಇದೆ ಕೃಷ್ಣಾಷ್ಟಮಿ. ಓಕೆ. ಓಂ ನಾರಾಯಣ ನಾರಾಯಣ. ಸೊ we were doing Sugama. I'll continue that. That Purvapakshi was saying, Purvapakshi said, we already discussed, and Siddhanti is replying that aham pratyaya vishayata means the vachartha aham pratyaya. Vachartha of aham pratyaya, that is a direct meaning of I is there in the Atma. In other words, Atma can be referred by the I thought. Atma can be known through the I thought, referred by the word I. This is what Purvapakshi said. Siddhanti told no, because Atma can never be subject of a given object. That means Atma is not a aham pratyaya vishaya, is not an object of I thought. In the process of the discussing, Purvapakshi referred to deep sleep also. In Sushupti, I did not know anything, that I slept well. These experiences are there. Even to that, Siddhanti replied that I did not know is in that statement there is I did not know. I slept well. This I reference is there. To this Siddhanti replied that I which you are using in referring to that experience of deep sleep, that I belongs to waking state, because regarding Sushupti we don't need to argue so much. It is a direct experience of everybody. There is no thought whatsoever, either aham pratyaya or idam pratyaya. No pratyaya whatsoever is present in deep sleep. Okay. No pratyaya whatsoever, either aham pratyaya or idam pratyaya. None of them exists in deep sleep. Therefore, okay, I'm just pulling my table so that I can lean. And this is my way. Still a little bit of strength I get. So in the process of this reply, we are to discuss one more argument. Etena nakinchida vedishamitya nirvachaniyam bhavajnanam paramrishyate iti vadanto navina vedantinopi parastaha veditavyah. Some subsequent Vedantins who came after Sri Shankara, they said that in deep sleep not only I, the thought of I is there, they say at least there is a positive ignorance. Positive means something substantial, not simple absence of knowledge. Positive ignorance means what? They mean yat kinchit bhavarupam. Not simply absence of knowledge, but something positively you can call as ignorance. See the difference? Absence of knowledge is, they say, it is not simply absence of knowledge, but something, a positive substance you can perceive as ignorance. An absence is perceived one way, but a presence is perceived in another way. Here you say pen is present, you can perceive directly. Now you say there is no pen in my hand. To see the absence, you have to think of the pen, and in contrast with the pen, you have to see. So the difference between positive, when you say positive ignorance, what is that positive? See, to know an absence of something, to know an absence of something, to know an absence of something, you have to think of its contrast. What is absent? So in contrast with the real object, you can think of its absence. If you can't think of the actual object, its absence also cannot be thought of. Isn't it? This is what our Pramana Shastras discuss. So an absence of anything cannot be thought of unless you have something a positive. It's the positive, unless you can think of the positive substance. So here it is not an absence of knowledge, they say. Absence of what knowledge? The knowledge which is not at risen. The knowledge Brahmajnanam which is not at risen. So how can you think of absence of it? Therefore, they say it is not simple absence of knowledge. Then what is it? You don't require to think of its contrast. Ajnanam is present without thinking of its contrast. Therefore, it is something positive. See, this, they try to argue out the presence of a positive ignorance instead of showing it. See, in Anubhava, you don't have to argue. Anubhava is something which is everybody's Anubhava. In deep sleep, there is no Anubhava, means there is no vritti. There is a vritti regarding deep sleep. See, this difference they are unable to make. Probably they get mixed up. There is a thought, there is a vritti about deep sleep in the waking state. But deep sleep experience itself, the experience of Sushupti itself is not a vritti. Sushupti itself is not a vritti. Sushupti appears as a vritti when you are in waking. From waking standpoint, when you are recalling it, when you are referring to it, because in waking you have a mind. The mind is trying to understand the deep sleep. So the deep sleep is beyond mind. I think this point we have stated. I just say once again because it's a very important point. Deep sleep is an experience which is beyond mind. That is yourself. An experience of yourself without mind means what? Experience of yourself without mind means you alone are present and without anything other than yourself, like mind, sense organs, body and world and so on. Nothing else other than you. You alone, all alone present. So the experience of yourself, no mind is required, because to exist, just for the existence of Atma, mind is not required. Mind is required for knowing something other than yourself. Myself is a self-existing entity. Therefore, mind is not required. What is beyond mind? When mind is asked to think of, it will present it as some kind of a thought. Because mind can't think of anything. Mind can't think of anything without putting a thought to it. Because mind knows only thinking. Thinking means a thought. So therefore, anything, if what is beyond thought, if mind is asked to understand what is beyond thought, what does it do? It thinks of it as another thought, another relation, another something like this, it imagines. It imagines something in relationship what it already knows. See, mind only relates. Mind means relation. Mind means relation. It can only relate either as a present or as a past or as a future or as a next to me or before me or after me or something in front of me or back of me. It relates to itself. Mind can think of anything related to itself. From where it is, it starts. It thinks of some relational. So therefore, mind means a thought, thought means a relational. Therefore, the waking mind is trying to understand the state of deep sleep. One thing it puts that it is something other than the waking state, okay? But in what sense other? Other means where the waking is totally non-existent. Then Sushupti alone, all alone is, this is true. But he says, it is not simply other than it. Still, how other than it? How other than waking? It tries to put a relation with waking. That is called the mind. Mind cannot forego itself when it wants to understand what is beyond mind. It is our mistake, in fact, to expect the mind to think of what is beyond mind. Is there any meaning asking the mind to think of something which is beyond mind? It is like asking the light. It is like asking the light to think of darkness. How can the light illumine the darkness? How can the mind think its own absence? Asking the mind to understand the absence of mind means dismissing the mind itself, rejecting the mind itself. But we are not rejecting, we are retaining the mind and asking the mind to think what is beyond the mind. That means it is meaningless, it is working for contradiction. When you are asking the mind, mind has to reply. Means thought has to reply. When thought is present, how can the mind know what is beyond the mind? When the mind is present, how can it know what is beyond mind? That means you are asking the mind to say, what is beyond you? What is in your absence? In the absence of mind, mind alone has to think. That means mind is present. The absence has no meaning. You have not made the mind absence. You have not made the mind as absent. You are retaining the mind and trying to find out through the mind. You are retaining the mind and trying to find out through the mind. That means you are only retaining the mind. You leave the mind, then don't ask the mind. That itself is. Leaving the mind itself is understanding what is beyond mind. If you ask the mind, that's meaningless. Don't ask the mind. Mind is unfit for it. Leave the mind. That is the real way of knowing what is beyond mind. To know what is beyond mind, leave the mind. See, what we are doing, the mistake which we are doing is trying to find out through the mind what is beyond the mind. That means you are not going beyond the mind, you are remaining within the mind and trying to understand. That's meaningless. That's what we are telling. You remain with the mind, so you are not transcending. When you yourself don't want to understand what is beyond mind, then you won't get it. You will get only a state of mind only. You won't get what is beyond mind. If you want it, drop the mind, don't ask the mind. Drop the mind, don't ask the mind. That means even dropping itself is if dropping also is another thought, then that again mind is present. Therefore, deep sleep is something, there is neither retaining the mind, dropping the mind. Mind itself doesn't exist, there is only deep sleep. Neither you retain it nor you drop it. Mind is already part of deep sleep. It is effortless, self-existing Atma. It is all alone there. Therefore, in deep sleep, thinking that there is something positive ignorance and all that is unnecessary. Simply because there is no thought. You know what they say? The Mula Vidya Vadins, who say that there is avidya in deep sleep. Yes, there is avidya. There is no mind, true. See what their argument is. There is no mind, okay, but there is a vritti beyond mind. There is a thought which is beyond mind. Have you ever heard this Mula Vidya Vadin's argument? They say it is a vritti, but it is not mind. There is a vritti beyond mind. Does it make any sense? There is a thought which is beyond mind. Can there be a thought which is beyond mind? This is how they argue. Maya vritti is different from mind's vritti. Mind is different and Maya is another. How can you think of anything which is beyond mind? Everything is mind alone. So this is how they keep on arguing, escaping, and it doesn't make any sense, full of contradictions. All this is because it is a theory, it is a hypothesis they are trying to construct. If Vedanta is just taking the anubhavas and probing them, examining them, and discovering a common, universal, self-existing anubhava. Vedanta is an investigation of your anubhava. Anubhava is present, you investigate, you remove the narrow anubhavas, limited anubhavas, go to the vaster anubhava, still vaster, the vastest, the absolute anubhava you reach by transcending, by negating all other anubhavas. So you move from one anubhava to another anubhava, smaller anubhava to larger anubhavas, limited anubhava to vaster anubhavas. So it is a continuous sadhana of investigation. Therefore, it is not a speculation, it is not imagination, it is not constructing hypotheses and theories. Therefore, Mula Vidya is a hypothesis, it is a theory explained as required, as a necessary to explain something. You see the world, phenomenon of the world. To explain the phenomenon of the world, they try to imagine something in order to explain. What is a theory according to science or any other subject like economics and etc.? Theory is an imaginary idea felt necessary in order to explain certain principles, certain contradiction. We find certain experience in life. This experience looks incomplete, or it is a contradiction, or unable to understand, a mysterious experience. To explain this contradiction, you have to imagine one principle. You have to imagine some principle which is supposed to account for. Account for means explain. Explain means makes it reasonable, acceptable. A contradiction is found if you assume one factor, that factor helps you to resolve this contradiction. Resolve this contradiction or something inexplicable, unexplainable. Therefore, you assume some factor and that factor explains this, accounts for it. But this factor is necessitated by logic, logical necessity. It is not found in your experience. They say it is a logical necessity to assume Mula Vidya in order to explain Jagat. So this is what they say. You are assuming a factor and that assumption is necessitated. Assumption is a logical necessity. That means logically you are positing, you are imagining a theory, a factor. Theory means explaining a fact, assuming a factor in order to explain certain contradiction in life. Okay, this is called hypothesis, this is called theory. But I tell you, Vedanta is not a hypothesis. Because once you start a hypothesis, there are many possibilities. Because one person imagines possibility of one factor, he posits, he explains possibility of necessity of one factor, another person explains possibility of another factor, another person explains possibility of another factor. Then theory, once you assume a theory in order to explain some point, explanation is not one, is not the only possible an explanation. There can be many number of probabilities. There can be any number of probable factors. This could be probable if you say, somebody says, no, instead of that, this could be probable. Then again you say, no, this could be probable. Now, more and more probabilities you start imagining. Okay. Therefore, if you start imagining a theory, there can be more imaginations. Then among them again quarrel happens. Ultimately, you cannot decide anything, or each one decides as he likes it. Therefore, we don't posit any theories, any hypothesis. Okay. We don't need a hypothesis of Mula Vidya, just to go by your Anubhava. Therefore, Sushupti is everybody's experience, a universal experience. You don't need to put a theory about it. You don't need to explain logical probability about deep sleep. Why do you need a probability when you are right now present here? When you are right now present, I am present. Isn't it enough? I alone exist. This is what my Anubhava is, which nobody can deny. What is a universal experience, what cannot be denied by anybody, is a universal factor. Just look at it, accept it, and continue with it. Therefore, it is accepting the universal experience without trying to give an explanation from another angle. If you give one explanation, somebody gives some other explanation, somebody gives some other explanation, then it is endless. Okay. Therefore, no theories. He says, Navina Vedantinaha, Swamiji says, who are trying to posit a positive ignorance. Positive means what? A vritti, presence of a thought, without requiring a factor. It is not simply absence of something, it is a presence of some factor. Now, is deep sleep non-dual experience? These Mula Vidyavadins, they work for contradiction. One side they say Sushupti is non-dual. Another side they say there is a vritti. If there is a vritti, how can you call it non-dual? Non-dual they can't deny, because Upanishad says, and that is the very strength of Advaita, they have to show Sushupti as a basis for non-duality. They have to show Sushupti. Whenever anybody asks what is the proof of Advaita, they have to show Sushupti. But if they show Sushupti, according to Mula Vidyavadins, if they assume presence of some positive substance in addition to Brahma, then the Advaita suffers. Advaita gets violated. Then they say, yes, it is Advaita. At the same time, there is a vritti also. This is the struggle they keep on doing. I don't know, why do they want to make their own position weak? They want to make unconsciously their position of Advaita weak by trying to accept some presence of some positive substance in deep sleep. All this because when you are trying to explain logically, they are building some house. I think it won't end. How long it goes on? Keep on hitting. Noise. Only noise. We don't have any classroom at all. See, what is important is ignored. Anyway, I don't want to discuss this thing. People are already angry with me. For my suggestions and criticism, people are angry. So we have to put up with it and not question. Because people have become not only politically conscious, people have become more political minded. Simple suggestion is taken as a political criticism, as an opposition party's criticism. Even a simple suggestion, a pointing out, taken as a political minded. So we leave it. If we leave it means without telling reason, I have to cancel the class. And then if you are not curious, okay, class is there, is okay. If it's not there also, okay, then no problem. I won't give you any explanation. I'll just suddenly cancel, suddenly go away, suddenly this thing. I don't give any reasons. Then if you are not curious, then it's okay. Then I am also happy. I won't give any reason. Simply just say no class, that's all. Why? Don't ask. If you ask, then it becomes politics. See, I don't know how many days it goes on, the noise. I think a little stopped. Okay, let me continue. At least a few minutes, as much as I can. Therefore, in Sushupti, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no Aham Anubhava. Here is one more point. People want to distinguish between Nirvikalpa Samadhi and deep sleep. On what basis? God alone knows. Because people, you can talk to Vedantin, you can talk to Vedanta Jignyasa. But if you are an emotional fellow, why do you want to come to Vedanta? This I don't understand at all. If you are a Vedanti is supposed to investigate. You investigate. I am pointing out and see. No, what is directly in your Anubhava, he refuses to accept. And he wants to believe somebody's opinion because that Gurugalu sir told something, therefore I want to accept. If you are so emotional, why do you want to become Vedantin? You accept that Gurugalu statement, that is enough. Oh, that means you are rejecting that Gurugalu. Ayyo Rama. This kind of emotion, why do you want to become Vedantin? Do Upasana Bhakti, that is enough for you. That Gurugalu, this Gurugalu keep on dividing, collecting opinions of people. If you want to collect opinions of people, then you want to see somebody in the higher position, somebody sitting in chair is a better, somebody sitting on the ground is knowledge is less. This kind of a judgment based upon the chair and Pita doesn't decide whose knowledge is better, whose Vedanta is better. Pita means I am asking seat in kind of a chair. Chairs and all that is good for Loka, Dharma and Upasana and all that. They are useful. But when it comes to Vedanta, just knowing a fact, or if you go by the modern education system, that university, the big name of a university, or the university has got a very big campus, boy, it has got 100 acres, huge campus, it is internationally reputed university, all that throw into dustbin. How big is the university, how many students are there, how reputed is there, doesn't make any difference. It is the fact itself is right or not, is what counts. Who says it is a material? An individual who is not attached to any university, I've already plugged my ears. Did I plug? No. At least I plug my ears. The noise will be less. Okay. You plug and do anything. He is determined to hit in my ears alone. Those who want to compile others' opinions, then they say who is a better guru, who is a bigger guru, who is a bigger sannyasi, who is a smaller sannyasi, who has got a bigger ashrama and a smaller ashrama. Based upon that, you give the value of his opinion. These are all childish fellows. Why do the childish fellows want to learn Vedanta? Vedanta is simple investigation into. We also can do. We also have got a lot of gurus, sannyasis, pitadipatis, whose words we should value more, whose words we should value less. We also have our own Laukika criterion. Laukika criterion keep on saying that ultimately this thing. So the Anubhava is directly is there. The direct Anubhava the direct Anubhava, he doesn't want to see or is incapable of seeing. Then why do you want Vedanta when you don't want the truth? Nirvikalpa Samadhi, deep sleep. Do you see two? Nirvikalpa Samadhi is without thought. Deep sleep also is a without thought. Can you have two thoughtless states? Two Nirvikalpas? What does it mean? When there is no thought, it is non-dual. Can you have two non-duals? Two Advaitas? If you have two kinds of Advaita, then it becomes Advaita only. Where is Advaita? Childish way people talk. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is different from deep sleep. See what they say. So in these things, you are not directly looking at the Anubhava. You are only deciding from outside factors. I told him clearly, Nirvikalpa Anubhava, Sushupti Anubhava, as an Anubhava, it is one. It is from the, I think, did we discuss this? Yeah, I think we discussed. Yeah, I think I don't have to waste my time. Don't have to waste my time with the children. Children who want to compile opinions. See, elder brother is greater. Elder brother ginta still elder brother is greater. Avarginta father's words are greater. Then avarginta mother's words are greater. So children count who is great. Oh, my elder teacher told. No, headmaster told, still he is greater. Or ultimately my father told he is a greater. This is good for children. Children's Vedanta. So you, after coming into waking state, from the deep sleep or Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you try to evaluate. Then it looks different naturally. But the Nirvikalpa state itself is no different from deep sleep. Okay, I think when they are incapable of understanding, no point in talking to people. Will proceed. I think I don't want to waste my time talking to children. Okay. So, tasmadapi natma svabhavataha eva hamartaha kintu aham pratyaya vivekena iva tathatvena pratiyate iti siddham. Okay. Next prashna. Abba, these people are hitting, Abba. Today we have already started late. Within half an hour, 15 minutes, there is only hitting only. Only 15 minutes is the class. Should I continue or close down? Tomorrow also it will be same again. Then where will you go? India is such a great country. Or I should not comment. Yeah, I shouldn't comment on anything. Then what should I do? Cancel. You'll be happy. Without knowing why cancelling. I think you also will be happy. Because this is how people love. Okay then. Oh, no, I can't talk with this noise.